Parent choice is a mirage if the school setting itself is transformed by the government from afar into a one-size-fits-all environment. This is what is happening in Alberta today. Parents may think that they have choice, but if the present trend of government coercion in schools is not halted, regardless of the type of school you may think that you are sending your child to, there will not be any genuine difference. On March 10th, 2015, the first day of the spring sitting of the Alberta Legislature, the first order of business was to reintroduce Bill 10. In 4 short hours, with almost unanimous support, Bill 10 was passed. Bill 10 enforces gay and queer straight alliances across all publicly funded schools, including Catholic, charter, private, independent schools, and it requires just the request of a child. This legislation completely alienates parents who need not be informed of their child's request for a gay-straight alliance, nor their attendance to one. And it strips school autonomy, as schools cannot accommodate anti-bullying clubs to the foundational culture of the schools themselves, whether that is religious or for some other reason. Instead of standing up in support of local development of clubs that were both cohesive to the foundations of the schools and met the needs of students, the Alberta Legislature passed Bill 10, a poorly written, polarizing law that leaves the development of clubs in the hands of vulnerable children. The legislation expressly strips parents of the right to have any say in the culture, beliefs, or environment of the schools their children attend. The new law applies to all schools in Alberta, public, Catholic, private, and charter. This is a gross overreach into the lives of Alberta families and alienates parents who care deeply for their children and will do all they can to explore and define the best educational setting for their child's particular needs. Children do not come one size fits all, and education should not do so either. When a government decides for parents and all stakeholders in education what such education will look like in schools, this is not progress towards a freer, healthier, more inclusive society, but entirely the opposite. When PCE first started fighting this battle against Bill 10, many community leaders, many schools, and even religious leaders felt that they would be able to accommodate Bill 10 in their schools and would not stand up in opposition out of fear of being misrepresented as hateful. This past January, Minister Egan released guidelines for best practices, creating learning environments that respect diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions. These guidelines were used by school boards since March up to March 31st of this year to develop new policies. Many boards across the province implemented some of the most controversial aspects of these guidelines, and now educators in these schools must seek a student's explicit permission before disclosing information related to the student's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression to the parents. Educators and counselors in these schools, whether they agree with it or not, and many are very uncomfortable, are being coerced to isolate parents from their own children, thereby severing the parent-child bond that is essential to the mental health of every single child. Children that struggle with sexual identity confusion are at an extremely high risk of suicidal thoughts. Statistics repeatedly reinforce that individuals from the LGBTQ community have the most positive outcomes in their lives when they have strong parental and family support. How can parents care if they're left unaware? Schools should encourage relationships not secrets. Children are in danger if the parent-child bond is destroyed. The argument that everyone gets every time they make this statement is that there may be parents out there that would harm their children if they found out that their children were struggling with sexual identity. But this is not an argument that you should accept. The bottom line is that legally, schools across this province are obliged by law to reach outside of their borders to social services and other support networks if at any time they are concerned about the care of a child at the hands of their parents. And that is what should be used to deal with unique and very rare situations when children are genuinely endangered. This guideline will only serve to isolate children who are confronting one of the most difficult and confusing moments of their young lives, with the cumulative pressure of having to decide when, if ever, to invite their parents into the discussion. Children have the right to be children. When they are in pain, their parents should be the first source of care, and teachers, the vast majority of teachers, want to join in partnership with parents to support children in schools. I ask the Alberta government, who will be to blame if children are lost? The parents, because they put their faith in the authorities and were left unaware of the fact that their children were suffering? The teacher in the school who had been coerced by the guidelines and policies developed by their school boards based on the guideline booklet and Bill 10 and were not allowed to tell the parents? Or the government of Alberta who voted anti-family Bill 10 into law and followed up with these dangerous guidelines? If Alberta parents want to avoid such a moment of soul-searching after the self-harm of a child, we, each and every Alberta citizen, must unite and reject the coercive nature of the guidelines outright. We must insist that the school boards across this province who have not already respected parental rights in education remove the controversial policies that do not allow educators to inform parents of the suffering their children are facing in their schools. In order to protect Alberta students into the future, we have to demand amendments to Bill 10 legislation that return parents to their rightful position. When parental rights are stripped, children are endangered. Parental notification regarding the needs of their children in school cannot be optional. If we really care about the children of Alberta, then parents, not teachers, schools, bureaucrats, or activists, parents must remain the primary caregivers in their children's lives and the primary decision makers in their children's education. Bill 10 was a test. Will parents accept the violation of their parental rights as stated in the Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that a parent must have the right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children, or will they not? And I'm looking at this crowd and I say no. We must say no to Bill 10 as it is written, and to the alienating policies that have been written into school board policies. If we do not make our voices heard, we will soon find comprehensive sexual education foisted on schools next. I am here to let you know that sexual education is undergoing a rewrite in the province of Alberta as we speak, and it is looking to be put into schools by 2017. There are individuals, activists, working with the government, trying to push to make sure that parents will not have the ability to opt in to comprehensive sexual education. That is the next step on this battle. As long as Bill 10 remains on the books as written, the government knows that it can continue to violate religious freedom. It can continue to violate parental rights. And it can continue to violate the relationship that is sacred between parents and their children. We ask, with respect, will the government of Alberta sit down with Parents for Choice in Education and work out legislative changes and amendments to Bill 10 to return parents to their rightful position as the primary educators and caregivers of their children?